Hey friends, it's Ben Hummel here, and welcome to the first ever episode of The Genius Way with Ben Hummel. I'm your host, and we are going to be talking about why it's actually a good thing to feel stuck in your life and purposeless. And I know that doesn't sound too good, but trust me, you're going to like this as we get into it. So I am a psychotherapist, a licensed psychotherapist, a teacher, author, public speaker, and I've also created something called The Genius Way. That's what this show is about. The Genius Way is a framework to help people develop in their personal lives in whatever way they are trying to develop. And that could run from spiritual development, psychological development, corporate development, career development, just being a better human being and being more happy and fulfilled in their lives. And so pretty much I do that all day long on all these different levels. And when we're talking about the topic of the day, which is feeling stuck and purposeless, no matter what I work on with people, and, let's say we're working on something psychological, working on depression, anxiety, after we clear those things up, in most people, there is still a sense, even with healthy mentality, healthy mental health, there's a sense of feeling directionless and stuck in their lives. That's not necessarily an individual mental issue as much as it is an existential issue. And we all go through that. And one of the reasons why I kind of gave that title of why it's a good thing, and I'll tell you why. Because if we didn't have something within us that is supposed to be more expressive, more out there, feeling more fulfilled, feeling more deliberately engaged in our life. If we didn't have that thing, if we didn't have that seed in us, we would be happy to just have our lives be just like they are. We would kind of slog along and everything would be okay and we wouldn't know the difference. But since you are feeling that from time to time, or maybe all the time, there's a sense of, oh, what is my direction in my life? How do I find that? How do I find where I'm supposed to go? What the next step is for me to do? How do I know if this is the right decision to make? How do I know if this is the right choice? And so this thing that is within us that knows that there's something more, I call your genius. And so we're going to talk a lot about genius on this program. And one thing I will say right off the bat, I need to re-educate my audience about what I mean by the word genius. And so genius is definitely not in this context. It's not the Mozart or the Einstein genius idea. It's not the IQ genius. Genius is something that has been known for millennia in all cultures around the world as an inborn set of gifts and talents that people express in their lifetime. And so in different areas, people call it different things, but for the lack of a better way to say it, we're going to call it the genius, okay? And so this genius is a collection of things that we individually are meant to express, okay? It's like a little blueprint. We are meant to express something in particular, all the way down to the level of existence. And so getting back to the idea of why do we feel stuck? Why do we, why does it matter to us? Well, underneath, there's something that has an agenda to express itself. And this expression goes all the way back to when we were born. And along the way, we kind of lose track of this, but it will always show up, this need, this genius, that is going to say, hey, look, I need to express something in particular. You're not doing it, so I'm going to remind you. And sometimes the way that it reminds us is that feeling of purposelessness, a feeling of being stuck, a feeling of just being like, oh, no, this is not what I'm into. This is not how it's supposed to go. So to be able to tune yourself into that feeling of purposelessness and kind of be brave enough to face it will show you what's underneath it. So let me talk a little bit about the Genius Way. The Genius Way is three things. Number one, it's a psychotherapy technique. And it is a technique that helps you to uncover your genius qualities as a way of healing yourself. Number two, it's a philosophy. It's a way to look at life, including that deep sense of expressive energy that we're all born with individually. And number three, it's a way to practice this stuff in your life. And so later on, we're going to get into a different part of the show where we're going to show how to practice the things that we uncover. And so I'm hoping this is going to be a very beautiful learning experience each episode here. That's certainly my intention. And so let's keep going with a little explanation more of what genius really is. So we'll call it everyday genius. Okay, this is, again, not having to do anything with IQ or specific brilliance. Genius has more to do with what is your thing to express? What is your gift? What is your talent? And there's a lot of people talking about genius and a lot of people talking about how beautiful it is, but not really how to get in touch with it, not really how to practice it, not really how to dig in and know what your particular genius is. And so that's what I created the Genius Way for, was to actually get down to that level of practical application. How do I find my genius? How do I practice it? How do I include it on all of the little decisions that I make in my life? And how do I keep aware of it as I'm moving through my day? Okay, so that's a really important thing, is to realize that your genius is there 24/7. It's already wanting to say something in particular that you are meant to say. And so to get in touch with that, feeling of, I'm supposed to be doing this, I'm supposed to be expressing this, I'm supposed to be putting this out into the world, from that deep layer of, this is what I was born to do. That's very, very, very powerful. And it's a very powerful way to move through the world. And so when you can continue to kind of move through your day being aware of that, then it's not just you choosing something off of a little whim or some other kind of random idea. This is you choosing what you're doing based on what you know about your genius. And so the Genius Way process is a way to do this. And that's that book right there. Anyway, we'll get into that later. So I hope you're getting a little grasp of where we're going here in this journey. And what I want to do quickly is I want to show you a little video. This video that's coming up illustrates what happens to us when we are kind of connected to that deep point in us where we are doing what we're meant to be doing. So this is a video about from a movie. It's a little snip from a movie called Little Buddha with Keanu Reeves, and it's a scene where Buddha is meditating. He hasn't become enlightened yet in this episode, but he's meditating, and something from existence comes to interact with him. So take a look.
Dico sta pared. E que nada dessa. Yeah.
So as you can see from this video, there is something that came to protect the Buddha. That big snake came to protect the Buddha, the snake representing existence. And what was the existence protecting and participating with? It was the purity and the sincerity with which the Buddha was attempting to do his own period of awakening. So within us, you don't even have to go as lofty as enlightenment. Within us, there is a genius that has its own agenda, And again, this is a very old idea, the most common idea that comes from the Greco-Roman times of genius, meaning there is something that we're born with that we are meant to express, and it has nothing to do with our little personality. It has something to do with who we are on the existential level. Okay, so existentially, the Buddha was being protected by existence itself because existence had a stake in the Buddha becoming enlightened, just like existence has a stake in you becoming more of who you are. There's an original blueprint for who we are called our genius. And within that, there are talents and skills and things for us to express individually that no one else can do besides us in the way that we do it. And so it's so important that existence even has a stake in you completing that task and bringing that out. Okay, so we'll get into more of that later. So one key thing that I want to share with you around how to actually do this. In a little while, I'm going to be directing a little guided exercise for you where you're going to be pulling up some material from your genius. And we'll get into that a little later. But first, some little concepts here that are really important. And so there is a difference between healing wounds and expressing your genius. And the way that I've explained that is that, we go through life, first we're born with a genius, and it's we have a trajectory that it's just there. It's like, here is what your job is. Here is what your expression is. And along the way, each one of us, without exception, gets wounded. We get wounded by, well-intentioned people, by different events. And by the time we get old enough to start, consciously looking for what am I here for? What do I want to do? What am I supposed to express? We become preoccupied with the healing of the wounds. Now, let's not forget, healing wounds is beautiful. It's important. It's necessary. It's good work. It's what all therapists are helping people to do. But healing wounds is only one part of the issue. There is also, besides healing our wounds and returning to a state of wholeness, there's also a different thing to express. It is an agenda that our genius has to express something new. And so in order to explain this thing, I have posited two things, two ways of expressing ourselves and using the drive theory. So before we get too technical about that, they're basically, the two things are the wound drive and the genius drive. And so in kind of layman's terms, there is a stored up amount of energy that wants us to heal our wounds. Something had gotten disrupted along the way. We got psychologically wounded. Maybe there was some abuse or some trauma, whatever that was. And part of us wants to come back to a state of wholeness, And so there's a drive, there's a fund of energy that wants to heal that. Okay. And that motivates most of our lives. And most of us spend our entire lives trying to get back to that state of wholeness. However, there's another drive. And this other drive is more original than the wound drive. The other drive is the genius drive. And think about in terms of the genius drive in terms of something like an acorn. Okay, an acorn is the potential of an oak tree, and when you plant it, it knows what to do. It has an agenda, not to be an elm or to be a sunflower or to be a watermelon. It's going to be an oak, no doubt, if it has the right circumstances to grow in. And it's the same thing for us. In our genius drive, there is something that we are already in line to become. And the blueprint is there. All we have to do is plant it in the right spot. And what that means is to give our genius the proper framework in which to grow into what we're already meant to be. Okay, so on the one hand, it's the wound drive. The other hand is the genius drive. And so, again, both of these are good, but they'll lead to two different destinations. One will return us to a state of wholeness, and that's beautiful. Good work, right? But in terms of a sense of fulfillment, in terms of not feeling stuck, in terms of not feeling purposeless, you got to get in touch with your genius drive. Purpose comes from being in touch with who you are existentially and then expressing it outwardly in the world. And so it's important to know how different healing a wound and expressing genius feels. Okay, that's the important thing. And that's what we're going to get into with our guided visualization in a few minutes. So the wound drive and the genius drive are both things that motivate us to act, to express. Okay, one heals, the other one expresses something new and is related to a sense of fulfillment. So here we go. We're going to do a little guided imagery here. And during this guided imagery, I'm going to want you to just kind of hopefully you're not watching this in your car, but if you can sit here and if you're comfortable, close your eyes and go through this exercise and see what comes up for you. Take a mental note of it. Pause this thing and write down what you come up with, because we're going to use this later on to help you to uncover some of your genius qualities so that you can then take those things into your life and actually create a little practice around them. That's kind of the basis of what we're doing here in this show. So listen to this guided meditation, this guided visualization to mine some of your genius qualities. Close your eyes and take a deep breath, and then deeply exhale. Imagine that you're sitting in your favorite chair. You look through the window and it's a beautiful day, so you feel like going outside and taking in the beauty. But as you go to get up, you find that some invisible force is keeping you stuck in your chair. You see that no matter what you try to do, this invisible barrier is keeping you from getting up and going outside into the fresh air and sunshine. Now imagine that you can speak to this invisible barrier that's hindering your movement. Ask about what it is that's keeping you stuck in your chair. Is there any particular reason that you have to feel stuck in this way? Does this feeling of being stuck remind you of any other part of your life that feels this way? as you're conversing with this invisible barrier, it slowly starts to become visible. You can finally see what has been keeping you stuck. What do you see? And now imagine that your inner genius takes shape and form right in front of you. What does your genius look like? What special attributes does it have? How does it feel to be able to be in the presence of your inner genius? And now ask your genius to help you out of your state of being stuck and into a state of movement. How does your genius help you? Now see yourself arising from your chair along with your genius, and see yourself walking out your door to enjoy the beauty and freshness of the day. And when you're comfortable, you can open your eyes and return to this room. So how was that experience for you? Were you able to get into it? Were you able to see anything about what was keeping you stuck and kind of extrapolate that into your life, like day to day? Were you able to see anything about your genius? What it looked like? Did you hear what it said to you? Were you able to go through that whole experience? And, kind of the reason I'm curious is because to the extent that you have kind of a fluidity in the way that you perceive your inner experience, allows you to have a deeper insight into whatever you're trying to work on, to change. And in this case today, we're talking about moving out of the feeling of feeling stuck and purposeless. So your genius is the tool that when you pay attention to it, it helps you to kind of move through these things. And that's what's important about this. Creating movement. That's the message of the day. So it's not just about feeling stuck. It's a privilege to feel stuck because then you can do something about it. But it all depends on a deeper look into what's keeping you stuck. And so this is a little tool here, this guided visualization. And I hope you got something out of it. And what I'd like you to do, if you wrote something down or if you remember something, I would like you to keep track of that, because with the Genius Way Show, we're going to help you build on the knowledge you have about what your genius is, as well as the things that get in the way of expressing your genius and of expressing something that is more fulfilling for you. Okay, so these things that you're coming out, I call it mining. It's content mining from your inner experience. And when you collect the information that comes out, it'll help you build a little kind of framework to see what you're actually dealing with in your own personal life that's getting in the way of you living a fulfilling life. And that's gold. That is gold. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing with this show. We're going to keep adding to that. So start a little journal if you intend to kind of watch this, which I hope you do. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is to talk about how to bring about more awareness in different ways besides, necessarily a guided visualization. So it's to be able to walk through your life with a deeper perspective on what's actually happening. And again, genius is the key for that. So there's a lot of people who, let's say they're a meditator, they will connect to a certain meditation in order to center themselves and to kind of reel in their senses and kind of check in with what's going on with them. There are people who do different practices like yoga or Tai Chi or, many different things to do centering, grounding, and bringing our attention inward. And so what the Genius Way proposes is that you use your genius for that. So to use your genius to center, come back to your center, to be able to kind of move forward with movement, you got to identify what are the qualities of my genius. So in this exercise, what did you find? So I did this exercise along with you. You can do it as many times as you want, and I encourage you to go back because you'll find more things. Go back and listen to it again. What I found, I had a genius image. My genius was kind of Gandalf-like, with the staff and the white hair and so forth. And what my genius did for me, he grabbed my hand, pulled me up out of my chair, and we were dancing. This music started playing, and we were just dancing together. Sunlight was coming through the windows, and then we kind of just walked outside together holding hands. And what that showed me, what the information was for me, was that when I'm in touch with my creative center, which is my genius, the genius that has a mandate to express something new, I don't have anything holding me back. I don't have anything that's keeping me stuck. That remembrance of that image of my genius pulling me out of my chair is a touchstone. So when I'm going through my day and maybe feeling stuck about something or feeling like here's an impasse or something that's not working, I will remember that image. And that image is enough to kind of move me through that if I let it. So that's what I'd like you to do too. I'd like you to experiment with what you found in this guided imagery. And I'd like you to see how far you can go with this. I'd like you to see how far you can experiment with this. And later on in the show, I'm going to give you like a weekly challenge to use what you actually discovered in this exercise. So that's coming up as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break for a commercial. We'll be right back with more about feeling unstuck.
I'm Julianne Meyer, the host of Own Your Wellness, and you can watch my show on Mondays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific on Achieve TV right here on E360 TV. Remember, there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees.
Okay, so let's say a little bit about purpose and purposelessness. Okay, so at our core, our genius basically is purpose. It's directly connected to purpose. And what I mean by purpose is basically a mandate or an agenda that we were born with to express something in particular. And so when I'm talking about genius, remember, I'm talking about everyday genius, the genius that everyone has, that every single person is given at birth. And this genius has something in particular to say. It basically has a handful of things in particular to say. So look, you're not going to be the only artist. You're not going to be the only construction worker. You're not going to be the only archer. But you're going to do all those things in your own way. And without you, that particular way of doing those things will never be expressed. As far as we know, we're here once as this. Even if you believe in parallel universes and parallel timelines, they're all a little bit different. This life is here for you to express something in particular, and it happens only once. That's how incredibly important it is. And so when we're talking about purpose, our genius basically implies that that is our purpose. But what we don't know is how to find out what that is, because we're not given a book. There's no instruction manual. We certainly don't get a lot of encouragement as kids. And so we have to find that ourselves. And that's got to be somehow some part of the plan to like struggle to get down to what is purposeful for me. Okay. So the reason that we have purposelessness is because we're simply not on our purpose. We're not on our genius way. And the genius way is an attempt, to create a framework for people to individually find their own purpose. So that's what that's about. So let me tell you a little story. So once there was this famous mathematician, and he was lecturing at this big university, and there's lots of students around, a couple hundred people in the classroom. And he was explaining some kind of theorem on the blackboard. And one of the students said, how did you become this great mathematician? And he said to him, look, when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was dance. I just loved it. I danced in plays, and I danced in my backyard, and I danced anywhere I went. And I was all about dancing. It was just so much fun. And it was just, oh man, it was just so important to me. But, after a while, my parents were like, that's cool and everything, but you got to do something practical. You got to start learning about other things. And so I picked up a couple math books and was like, oh, okay, I get it, and I started to get really good at it. I had a natural talent for it. And, I went through high school and college, and people started recognizing me for my talent in terms of mathematics. And, I worked my way up, and that's, here we are. And the student said, really? So that's how you became the greatest mathematician in our country? He said, no. That's how I became the crappiest dancer in the country. And so what happened here was his genius was already speaking. And his genius was saying, you're a dancer. His heart was in it. His joy was in it. And even at the end, when he was this great mathematician, he was saying, no, really, it was that other thing. That's what gave me purpose. And so the trick is, when finding genius, it's not just about something that you're good at. It's something that makes you feel so amazing to be doing it while you're doing it. That's where the fulfillment comes in. That's where the purpose comes in. That's where you're connected to something that you were born with, and actually expressing it in the world, making that connection. That's what purpose is all about. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. And so that's what I wish for everybody here watching this program, to be able to get to that point in themselves where I am expressing what I came to express, and I'm feeling that sense of fulfillment that nothing but that can give. So that's the key here. It's not just being good at something. It's being in tune with what existence has planted in you to express. And it's all about outward expression. Genius is for people who want to put their expression out into the world. And I don't know why it's that way, but no matter who I work with, whether I'm working with a psychology patient, whether I'm working with a coaching mentee, there is always that aspect where I want to express something and I don't know really how to get to it. We're not taught that as kids. We're not encouraged to do that necessarily. And usually when we're good at something, everybody comes beating a path to our door and praises us for that. But if it's not in touch with or in line with our genius, it doesn't even matter. So besides looking for something that you're good at, you got to find something that you're expressing that feels good to express it. That's the cream of the crop right there. That's really what it's all about. So, okay, next what we're going to do, I am going to give you guys what I'm calling the weekly challenge. And I'm going to give you a question, and I want you to kind of see what you can do with this week. So here's the weekly challenge. If there was nothing in your way to expressing or demonstrating or fulfilling what you think your genius wants to fulfill, what would you be doing? So in other words, let's say you have a job, you're a 40 hour a week, school teacher, but really you want to, be a visual artist, let's say. If that job wasn't stopping you, if the 40 hours a week wasn't exhausting you, if that wasn't there, what would you be doing? And so when you find the answer to that, during the week, I want to give you to give yourself 1 hour to do that thing. And it doesn't matter if you're doing it in front of people, you can do it in your basement, you can do it in the backyard. Just engage in that one thing. So if we'll take our example, if you think, I would be a visual artist, you go and create some art for 1 hour this week, just 1 hour. Because when you do something that's coming from a creative impulse, you will get a feeling, you will get some more information about what your genius is just by following that creative impulse without reservation. So the challenge question is there for you to go beyond the idea of like, I don't have any time, I'm stuck doing this. I didn't really want to do this, but here I am. Now I've got, family, I've got, these circumstances, I don't have enough money, I'm too old, whatever the excuse is. There's still a genius in there that wants you to express something in particular. And if you haven't found that, you've got to give some time to finding it. So the challenge question, if you weren't feeling stuck in a certain aspect of your life, if there was nothing in your way, what would you be doing? So take that and spend 1 hour to do that very thing. Follow the creative impulse. Okay, we'll be right back.
Ben Hummel's writing comes from a deep well of experience, practice, and wisdom. The Genius Way teaches you the life skills you need to find your own unique genius. Summoning Genius helps readers to turn a midlife crisis into an opportunity for personal growth. You can find Ben's books on thegeniusway.com, Amazon, and most online booksellers.
And we're back. So each and every one of us, in order to stay moving forward on our personal development journey, always need a bit of inspiration, motivation, connection. We need people that care about us, who are aware of us, who will encourage us to keep moving. And that's exactly what I'd like to do with you guys at the end of this program. And so before we get into that, I also want to invite you to write to me at ben@thegeniusway.com, because I'm going to be including a Q&A at the end of each show every week. And I want you to ask me questions about whatever you came up with in this episode. Just questions about genius, about personal development, psychology, spirituality, anything that this show might have brought up for you or something you want to know more about. We'll get into it and I'll answer your questions in the following week's show until we start doing live. Okay, so without further ado, let's move into a little bit of inspirational motivation that I created for this subject of feeling stuck and feeling purposeless. Here we go. In a real way, it's a privilege to actually feel stuck, since that feeling is so unnatural to our limitless inborn potential, it exposes itself as a falsehood by its mere presence. Something within us knows that to be stuck goes against the constant movement of existence, and the remedy to release ourselves from it is first to feel it so deeply that our genius and inborn potential begins to rebel against its falseness. At our core, we know that life is movement and that we have gifts to uncover and to express to the world. Sometimes we can only remember this by first feeling stagnant and dry. When we finally understand that feeling stuck isn't a condition, but a symptom of being disconnected from our own inner genius, we start to use the feeling of being stuck as a cue that we're not being authentic and as an invitation to get moving again on our genius way. Finding purpose is finding what's been written at our core long before any psychological wounds have been inflicted on us. and before we forgot that it matters that we're here. So, for this week, my wish for you is to spend at least 1 minute more paying attention to the creative impulses of your genius as they arise in you. The author of The Little Prince, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, said it best. What saves someone is to take a step, then another step. It's always the same step, but you have to take it. This week, take one more step on your genius way. It's been great to spend time with you this week. I hope you found something really valuable here for your personal development journey. And so until we see each other again, stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember, your genius has something to say.